Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and today, thanks to the French Ministry of the Interior, we have access to a MAT 49/54 Police Submachine Gun. These were made specifically for the Paris Police in 1954, as the name implies, and they're a very interesting twist on the standard MAT 49. So, in the aftermath of World War II, this is a standard one, the French military realized that a 9mm parabellum submachine gun really was a better idea than the 7.65 long that they had developed in the 1930s and used in World War II. So, using the lessons of what everybody else had started developing and building in World War II, they put together their own new submachine gun, and that would be the MAT 49. These were trialed in 1947, adopted in 1949, and they would go on to be very popular in military service. They were used throughout Indochina and Algeria, and are generally very well regarded. They're a very simple, a very durable, kind of heavy, but very reliable submachine gun. So, the issue, however, is that this was designed for paratroops. It needed to be compact, so we have a stock that telescopes up. We have a magazine well that also folds up, and this makes for a very compact package to jump out of an airplane with. But if you are a policeman on the streets of Paris, having a compact weapon isn't really all that important. There are, well, more important to have some other features, like being able to shoot single shots pretty accurately. So, among the major changes to the police version, the Model 1954 version, they replaced the wire stock with a wood stock, which is much more comfortable. They went ahead and added a very interesting kind of a semi-auto lockout to it. The original MAT 49 doesn't have a semi-auto selector, it's just off or high. The police version does have semi-auto, and of course, as you can obviously see, they extended the barrel out. That's going to give you a longer sight radius, a little easier handling maybe, and makes this handle a little bit more like a rifle than a submachine gun. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at exactly how these different changes work, especially this trigger mechanism, which is pretty cool. All right, starting with markings, we have the manufacturer's name up here on the top. These are the MAT 49/54, or MAT 54, and that stands for the Manufacture National des Armes de Tulle, so MAT. This is the Model 1954 pattern, and this is number R, R being one of the first of the serial number prefix letters that was used by Tulle, 269. So, as with the gun that this replaced, which was a police modified version of the MAS 38 submachine gun, relatively few of these were made because they were only made for, well, they were made for the Paris police, and this is in particular a police issue one. However, they were also used by the Gendarmerie and the CRS, or the Republican Guard. They're like the equivalent, the police equivalent of the Gendarmerie Mobile. For comparison's sake, here's a standard MAT 49, basically the same markings. We then have a separate serial number back here. This has the prefix PP, which stands for Préfecture de Police, the police department. And then this is not the serial number of the weapon, but a police rack number. So 1781 in this case. And that would apply to not just these guns, but all of the other guns that were in police inventory. So one of the two really obvious modifications was the replacement of the collapsing wire stock with a wooden buttstock. This has a sling bar in it, very similar to French rifles of the period. And its length of pull is just under an inch longer than the fully extended length of pull on the wireframe stock. But in general, a much more comfortable cheek weld with this. Now you may notice a few other differences, like our standard gun here has the grip panels pressed into the lower assembly, where a police gun has plastic grip panels. The contouring, the fabrication up here is very square, where it's welded and rounded over. On the standard gun, those are not differences with the police model, those are differences over the years of manufacture of the MAT 49. So I don't want to try and get into all of the small variations in standard MAT 49s, but you'll find the standard ones squared, rounded, metal grips, plastic grips, parkerized finish, which these both have, versus black paint over parkerization, That is the subject for another video at a later time. You'll also notice this does not have the dust cover on it. That is simply because the dust cover on this example is missing. So in standard service, they would have had this folding dust cover. So the other obvious difference is they lengthened the barrel. That gives you a longer sight radius. It makes the gun handle a little differently. It would be interesting to hear the exact justification, because frankly I don't think it needs a longer barrel, but someone thought it would be a good idea. So they experimented with a really long barrel. They experimented with a 430 millimeter barrel, which is just under 17 inches. They ended up, for the Model 54, adopting a 365 millimeter barrel, which is like 14.3 inches. That compares to 9-inch for the regular military gun, which is 230 millimeters. So substantially long barrel on this guy. And to go along with it, they actually have a slightly different style of front sight hood that is thin and stamped, as opposed to being a much heavier, rounded version on the standard gun on top. And you'll notice the standard gun had a sling swivel attached to the front sight. The police gun doesn't need that because it instead has a sling ring attached to the barrel jacket. The police model sights are basically identical to the regular military sights, except that the police model got these big sight protector wings on either side. And then the coolest part of this whole conversion, I think, is the trigger mechanism, where the original gun, as I said, didn't have a semi-auto mode. For police use, they very much wanted a semi-auto mode, and so the main trigger here on the police version is semi-auto. If I lock that open, pulling the trigger, we'll close the bolt, and then it locks back open until I reset the trigger to fire again. Now, it is still a submachine gun, and they do still want to allow full auto fire. They just want to make sure that you don't fire in full auto unless you really actually intend to. This makes obvious good sense in a police context. If you want to make one good, careful shot, it would really suck to discover, oops, I accidentally had it on full auto, and my one careful first shot hit the bad guy, and then the rest of the 3-round burst went into the crowd of people behind him. So what they did is they added this metal, that's basically just a pivoting piece of sheet metal pinned in place here. And so to fire in full auto, you have to lift that up, and then the front trigger is a full auto trigger. So if I pull that one, it's going to continue to fire until I release the trigger. So that acts as a really effective, simple but effective safety, because you just can't put your finger in until you deliberately lift it up out of the way. So after World War II, for the Paris police, the first submachine gun used was this modified MOS 38. They would then transition, about 1954, to the MAT 49/54, or MAT 54. These would then eventually be replaced by the Beretta PM12, and the Beretta would stay in service for several decades, and only in the last few years were the Berettas replaced by 9mm HK UMPs. So there's your brief history of Paris police submachine guns in about 3 sentences. So I'd like to thank the Ministry of the Interior for giving me the opportunity to take a look at one of these and bring it to you guys. These are, as you might expect, quite rare guns to find outside of, well, outside of France, outside of Paris even in particular, because they were specifically used by the Paris police. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.